Joining me now is Eric Stakelbeck. He is the author of ISIS Exposed. He also hosts a television program right here on TBN called The Watchman. Eric, a big day across the world, the recognition of Jerusalem. You're in and out of Israel all the time with your program, The Watchman. What was your emotional reaction to the president's announcement today?
Governor, we are part of history. Today actually made history. This date, December 6, 2017, will go down with May 14th, 1948, when Israel was reestablished miraculously as a nation. As a believer, in particular, Governor, and as someone with a connection to Jerusalem, as you mentioned, I am there frequently on the ground. I love Jerusalem. It's my second home. It's my first spiritual home, but it's my second home in many ways. It was just such a strong reaction. To see President Trump to have such vision and to be bold, the entire world, Governor, as you know, whether it's the UN, the EU, Russia, China, Iran, all the rest, are vehemently opposed to this move. But President Trump, with this move today, goes down next to Cyrus, goes down next to Harry Truman as a pivotal figure in the history of Israel, in particular the modern history of Israel.
Eric, it was in fact historic. For Bible-believing Christians, this is a day of celebration, a recognition of really our ally, but a recognition that Jerusalem is God's choice for the homeland and the capital of the Jewish state. And we've recognized this since the time of Abraham and certainly since the time of King David. But there are critics, and they're certainly loud today, who say this will end the peace process. Eric, I think the opposite is true. I'd love to get your take on how does this affect any hope of a peace process?
Yeah, Governor, great point. Number one, the pundits are gnashing their teeth in the mainstream media saying that this move is going to create instability in the Middle East. Well, I guess they missed the past 7 years, Governor. Talk about instability. ISIS, Iran marching across the region, developing nuclear weapons. Hezbollah, Hamas, Syria, Iraq, Yemen have ceased to be nation states. So forgive me if I'm not too concerned about the, quote, stability of the Middle East, to say the least. Instability is the only stability we have seen in the region, not only for the past 7 years, but for the past several decades and centuries. So not concerned about that. In terms of the peace process, Governor, a key point here, you have the Sunni Arab states, Saudi Arabia, Egypt and Jordan in particular. They are much more concerned about the looming Iran threat than they are the embassy moving to Jerusalem. The Saudis, Egyptians, and Jordanians see the Iranian regime and the axis it has formed with Hezbollah, with the Assad regime, as an existential threat to their governments and to their nation. So publicly, Governor, they will condemn the move of the embassy to Jerusalem. But behind the scenes, all of these countries have back channels to Israel. They're sharing intelligence with the Israeli government. Some very interesting things are going on in the region, all revolving around that Iranian threat and, to a lesser degree, the ISIS threat.
You know, Eric, you just brought up an important point, is that there is a public position that we're going to see taken by many of these Arab states. But privately, they're not the least bit worried about Israel. They know Israel's not going to attack them. They're not going to invade them. They don't want their land. What they are worried about are the more radicalized Islamic groups. You wrote a book called ISIS Exposed that details the origin and really the nature of what represents the greatest threat to peace, really the greatest threat to our existence. Why does today have a very important impact on being able to push back against these radical groups like ISIS?
Governor, it's a bold, decisive move by a Western leader. Imagine that in 2017. We are living in a Winston Churchill moment. No one has taken that mantle. Today, President Trump took that mantle and he ran with it by declaring unequivocally that we stand with Israel and the Jewish people. We stand with a fellow democracy in a sea of tyranny in the Middle East. The message sent to the jihadists, to the likes of ISIS, Iran, Hezbollah, and all the rest, is that America is back. And unlike the 8 previous years, we don't abandon our allies. We embrace our allies. Our greatest ally in the Middle East, obviously, is Israel. So you would think the jihadists would think twice before the next engagement with Israel, to know that President Trump not only is expressing verbal support for Israel. Okay, we saw that even in the last administration. President Obama said, "I've got Israel's back." President Trump has gone far beyond that by moving the embassy to Jerusalem. He's putting his faith, his words, into action when it comes to Israel. And in the Middle East, Governor, as you know very well, actions speak very loudly. They respect strength and boldness. That's exactly what President Trump showed today. Whether it was the missile strike, by the way, a few months ago, the cruise missile strike in Syria against the Assad regime there, whether it's the move today, the strong message against jihadists in Iraq and Syria. By the way, Governor, the caliphate, the ISIS caliphate, is basically crushed where they lived and breathed in the Middle East. All of these moves, including today, show a strong, decisive leader of the free world in President Trump and the United States. Once again, the jihadists, the radicals, they're on notice.
Eric, thank you very much for being with us. Eric Stakelbeck, the author of ISIS Exposed.
Thank you, Governor.
And the host of The Watchman right here on TBN.